on Podcast Rock City, we're going to talk about 2 years that were pretty significant as far as Kiss goes. That's 1976 and 1977, and you're going to hang out with us on Podcast Rock City Live. What's up, everybody? Joe here from Podcast Rock City, and with me this week, Sonny. Got to make it long because we're short a person or two. Hollywood Pony.
That was good. We should have several different intros because if Joey's not going to be here, I shouldn't have to see his face during the intro.
That's brutal. Lee's out today. Sorry, guys. We just found out. And Joey is on the road with Eric Martin right now. If you guys haven't seen, go on his Facebook page. He was on stage with Bret Michaels last night playing the congas. I was like, how cool is that? I mean, I think they know each other, or they did know each other from, they did a tour together, right?
Yeah, and I can almost guarantee you the congas was probably the best sounding thing on that stage.
Oh my God, that's brutal. I don't even know what to say. Thank you guys for joining us today. We have a great show for you. We're going to have a lot of fun, Sonny and I. But, you know, I wanted to, I have news and I have some special things that I want to show you guys, and we'll get into that. So let's go ahead and get to the news.
Podcast Rock City News.
It's an anniversary. Kiss Alive, I believe if I read it correctly, came out today, 48 years ago, I believe.
Okay.
So
I was going to say, it's not a big anniversary. It's one of those odd ones. Yeah.
48 years ago.
Okay.
Quite possibly the most important record in Kiss's history. Yes or no, Sonny Pony?
Quite possibly. It is. They're dead if that doesn't sell. They're dead as a doornail.
I love this record. I'm sure you do. This is one of those records that when you're listening to it, when we get older and we find out that they dubbed stuff in, because when we're kids, we don't know. Even when we're in our teens, we don't realize that kind of stuff goes on. But I love the little book that comes with it. I always thought it was great that there was like little letters written inside, you know. It was really like Bill Aucoin said, it was like a souvenir, you know, and it really is such a great album. When you put it on, it's just one of those things where I really love this record. I'm sure you guys do too. Just to let you guys know, our producer, Jeff, his wife had twins, so he's not here, and a boy and a girl, so they didn't come, I guess, from the same egg or whatever that is. What's fraternal and maternal? I don't know the difference.
I don't know the difference either. And Dennis, we may have to consult the release police on if our date is correct. We don't know for sure, but the release police is not welcome here.
Okay, hold on. I'm Googling it right now.
Oh, the Google is not right. That's what the release police lives for the Google to be wrong.
It says September 10th, 1975 on the Google. What's today? September 10th, not 1975. All right, that's all I have. Everybody's celebrating it online, and we're celebrating it here. All right, so before we go on to the rest of the show, I wanted to tell you guys a couple of things. One, this is going to be kind of fun. I went on, let's see, is it here? Yeah. The other day on Classic Rock, Ultimate Classic Rock Magazine's website, they listed 10 underrated 80s hard rock guitar heroes. A few of them I don't think are underrated at all. Vito Bratta is amazing. He's on there. Jakey Lee, how is he underrated? He's actually my favorite Aussie guitar player. Let's see. John Norum from Europe. I believe I did a gig with him once.
Okay.
I if I'm not mistaken, when my band played with LA Guns and Dokken, I believe I was told the guitar player from Europe was in Dokken. It might not have been him. I didn't get a chance to meet him. We met Tracy Guns, and he liked our band. I remember being like, Tracy Guns likes our band. It was really funny. Anyway, let's see. Who else is in here? Mark St. John played 2 songs on a Kiss record. I don't know how many he really played.
Let's make it 6. Since the release police is not here, we'll say he played 6 songs on the record. And he played live 3 times and showed up to every practice. And all of a sudden, he's an 80s guitar god?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I don't know if it's good God. It's
because everything he did after he recovered from what he was going through, everything he released is unlistenable.
I don't know. I have that White Tiger. Is that what
Oh
it's
my
called?
God. Unlistenable.
Mine is sealed because everybody scared me from it.
Yeah, they should have scared you from it. And to me, Bratta and Jakey Lee, I don't know if they're underrated. I would say they're underappreciated. I would say they're not talked about when the 80s guitar gods are talked about. And that's because they weren't, it's just like saying Terrell Owens and Randy Moss are the best receivers in history because they yapped a lot. There's Chris Carter was one of the best receivers in history. He just didn't yap as much as Randy Moss did.
Chris Carter was awesome.
Yeah. So,
it was.
Maybe it's popularity, maybe it's underappreciated, but I think anybody in our circles, they know who Vito Bratta is and they know who Jakey Lee is.
Yeah. So anyway, it's great to see you guys, all you guys that are watching live. Thank you very much. All right, so here's the deal. I'm packing the Kiss room because I'm getting ready to move. And I've come across a couple of things that I wanted to show you guys because I thought they were interesting at the least. So I remember, so I listened to Paul's book, his first book, because he reads it, and anytime the author reads the book, especially if it's their life story, I always find it interesting. Joey read his book, and my son listened to it and loved it. We listened to it together a lot. It was great. Paul's book, Gene's book Gene reads it, and I love that kind of thing. And in one spot, Paul talks about how he was dating Lisa Hartman and how he was at the grocery store. I'm thinking to myself, was he really at the grocery store? I believe he said he was at the grocery store or somewhere like that. And he looked, and there was a Star magazine, and on the cover, it said, I didn't know. Lisa Hartman tells of her love for Kiss rock star and why she won't marry him. And if you remember in the book, he said this really depressed him. It was like, there's nothing better than learning that this girl won't marry you, like on Star magazine.
Paul takes a lot of heartache for being sensitive and etc. And, maybe he is, but if Lisa Hartman and Donna Dixon don't want to be with you, and you're one of the biggest rock stars on the planet, what's it going to take? You know what I mean? I got to be president? What is it going to take? If I can't have it this way, and it's not in Donna Dixon's case, it's not like she goes, no, I want to marry a nobody because I don't want all that limelight. She married a bigger star. So, right? So I can understand where Paul was coming from, going, what is going on? Like, I should be wanted, and I'm not. And so I can appreciate that.
Yeah, I would understand, and in the book, it seems like he really kind of throws himself into relationships, like he falls in love, you know. So to see that right there, I mean, for all I know, he was in line getting some good and plenties, and he's standing there, and all of a sudden he looks up and it says Lisa Hartman won't marry. I mean, I don't know.
She's hot. She's hot.
Yeah. She's wearing a Jefferson's shirt.
So what?
That's
She's
interesting. I went down the Jefferson's no, not Jefferson's, Jetsons. My bad. I
Oh.
went down that Jetsons rabbit hole. Have you heard about that? We'll talk about that later. Okay, so I just thought that was kind of interesting. I didn't even realize I owned it. But I mean, you start cleaning up and digging around. I have found things that I didn't know I had, but it's all getting packed up. It's going to be taken to the new Kiss lair, and it's going to be a lot of fun. You guys will be on the ride with me. I'll try to keep up with your comments on the show today. It's hard without I got used to not having to do it because I had a producer. Okay, so all that being said, I guess we should go ahead and get to the topic of the week.
Podcast Rock City Topic of the Week.
I was sent on a mission. Life years ago.
Now I'm going to question everything I show on the show now is if it was really 76 or 77. We're fine. Whatever is whatever. Just remember this, that we don't plan, we just do. That's the way the show is. If you want something polished, all right. Anyway, we just have fun. Okay, 1976, 1977. 1976, what record does Kiss release?
The overrated one?
You know what? I have all my visuals today, and I did not even bring the record. Destroyer. All right. Well,
I love half of it. I love half of it. I tolerate 25%. I dislike 25%. That's how I would explain Destroyer.
Wow.
I get it that it's important. I get it. It puts them in a different planet. I get it. Ezrin was hot. I get it. Alice Cooper was hot at the time. I wasn't, old enough to understand what's going on in 1976, but it seems like maybe there was a lull in visual music. So here you get this kind of like shock rock plus rock music that's better than any Alice Cooper stuff I've listened to be honest. So
right. No, I'm the same way.
Yeah, I mean it's it's catchy, right? It's not just shock rock, but it's catchy.
So the Alive tour actually went into the beginning of 76, all the way to March. That's interesting. And then,
who was it? Rex just asked, what 25% don't I like? I'm not a fan of Great Expectations at all. And send the hate mail, but I don't like Sweet Pain and I don't like Flaming Youth. So I guess technically that's that's 33%, I guess.
You can send the hate mail to podcast Rock City 1.
That's the numero uno.
That's the number 1 at gmail.com. And just put it, this letter is for Sonny in the subject, and I'll forward it to him. Okay, so the Destroyer tour starts April 11th, 1976. I'm 5. You're 6.
Yep.
I'm 5 and you're 6. Bands opening, Belgium. Oh, no. There's no band called Belgium. That's the countries. Belgium. Yikes. Belgium, Canada, Denmark, England, France, the Netherlands, Sweden, Switzerland, USA, and West Germany is where they went. The bands that opened, 38 Special, Arthur Dodger, I don't know that band, Blue Oyster Cult, Bob Seger, and the Silver Bullet Band. Brownsville Station, Earthquake, Ethos, Hammersmith, Ho. I don't even
Did
know.
you say ho?
Hobin, Jay Giles Band.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
Johnny and Edgar Winter, Kansas. I would have loved that. I love Kansas. Montrose, Moon Pie, Point Blank, Scorpions, Stars, Stray, Ted Nugent, and UFO.
Wow. That must have
Average
been a couple of
attendance-
festivals maybe they played and a bunch
I
of
don't know.
those bands opened or something.
Well, Destroyer. Average attendance was 11,000.
It's not bad.
That's not bad. Looks like they started it in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Let's see if I can find a set list. I'm in the Kiss Alive Forever book. That'll get me hate mail too. Isn't that amazing? It's just a book. Deuce, Strutter, Flaming Youth, Hotter Than Hell, Firehouse, She, Ace Frehley guitar solo, Nothing to Lose, Shout It Out Loud, Gene Simmons bass solo, 100,000 Years, Peter Criss drum solo, Black Diamond, Detroit Rock City, Rock and Roll All Night, and Let Me Go Rock and Roll. And I'm sure it changes in different places. Notice that Beth is not on that set list.
Because Beth comes out
Later.
Yeah, well, Beth is out, but people aren't playing it yet,
Right.
right? And it gets played and it gets popular, and then they start playing it.
Let's see if I can find a spot where it I don't see. So anyway, one of the coolest things about that that show was something that you rarely saw, but they had, I don't remember what it was called, and I bet you guys that are watching do. It was called like the Frankenstein thing, or it's like two wires that like this electrical charge runs up, and I believe they had one behind the stage. If I read that correctly, it's behind the stage. And I think there's even a video that was recently released by the, Sam Loomis. By the way, Sonny and I know exactly who that is, but we're not telling you. And we don't. I'm just kidding. And I believe some video got released, and it was of that. And I always thought that was kind of cool. Kiss really tried to do, different things. So 76 Destroyer comes out. It takes them a little while for it to break. And oddly, Beth is what breaks it. Amazingly, Detroit Rock City is a wonderful song. But for some reason,
it's not, I'm going to say some things about Detroit Rock City. People are going to get mad. I love Detroit Rock City. Absolutely love it. I like that they had a single cut that takes all the, the car stuff out of it and all that, because that's not radio friendly, right?
Right.
But if you're looking at the 1970s and the hits that are on the radio, Detroit Rock City is not simple mass appeal enough, right? Rock and Roll All Night is. Detroit Rock City is not. 18 is, right? So it has to be simpler, and it was a little more complex. I love it, but I don't think Detroit Rock City was going to be a number one hit no matter what. Shout It Out Loud had an easier shot to do that.
At this point right now, in 1977, Kiss is everywhere. They're everywhere. They're on Playboy. They're everywhere, right? They're so popular at this point. What's this one? December 77 covers. They're on the cover of everything. This Playboy magazine has a huge article in it called How I Spent My Summer Vacation. I believe that's what it's called. I wanted to open it before, but it's really hard to get back into plastic, and I didn't want to deal with it. And sadly, there's no layout with this amazingly beautiful girl in it. And I know, because it pisses me off. I used to have a roommate named Mandy, and I brought that home one time, and she was like, this girl is gorgeous. And I was like, don't even open it. She's not in there. And she was so disappointed.
Why would you have somebody on the cover that's not in the magazine?
I don't know. She's so hot though. Anyway, it's all right. Anyway, yeah, so they're everywhere. They're huge. They're popular. The record breaks because of Beth, right? And
right.
And I mean, now they become that. Now they really become that household name.
Yeah, and if you think about it, it only lasts 3 years, really. They're on the front of everything for basically 3 years.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think that, okay, so they released from Destroyer, they released 3 albums back to back to back. Do you think that it would have been smarter for them to take a break in between the records?
Yes, but if I'm Casablanca and they finally are selling, you got to strike while the iron's hot.
Okay, I get that.
You get what I'm saying? So you can't count on that the tour is going to keep it going, keep it going, keep it going. You got to get something out there. And still, they didn't have a radio hit really till Beth. And then once you get the radio hit, it's like, we got to get another radio hit. And if it's not really for Hard Luck Woman, they probably don't get interested in the next record either.
Yeah,
right?
and
Because the next record doesn't have really mass appeal.
so we're talking about Rock and
AOR
Roll
radio.
Over.
Yeah.
Rock
Yeah,
and
it
Roll
doesn't
Over. Right.
have that. It doesn't have that. Gonna bring everybody in, and you don't have to be a Kiss fan to enjoy this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, according to Wikipedia, Destroyer went double platinum. And let's see, the US, it went to 11. So on the charts, as high as it went was 4, and that was Sweden. It was 11 in the US, and Australia and Canada got it down to 6. That's respectable, but to be as big as they were, as far as like on the cover of every magazine, you'd have thought they were number 1.
And they weren't on the chart long. It's one thing to hit the chart. There's another thing to stay on it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it says how many weeks is. Oh wait, peak chart position. It doesn't say how many weeks. But anyway, yeah. So the next thing that comes out is Rock and Roll Over, which I don't have a copy of with me right now.
Wow, you have one job.
I had one job. I failed miserably. Anyway, okay, so that comes out. Let me ask you this, because I'm not really sure, but did Kiss Me the Phantom of the Park comes out in 78. Are you sure?
78, yeah. Right?
I don't know. I think it's 77. What's this magazine say?
I thought it was 78.
But okay, so well, here's the question anyway.
I don't know for sure, actually.
It's 78. You're correct. So never mind about that.
But I mean, even think about Beth, right? So Beth gets played, is starting to play on AM radio, blah blah. I would bet the house that Beth is getting played in homes, and women that are listening to it have no idea that it's Kiss.
Good point. Good point.
Right?
So,
it's just a mass appeal song that starts doing well, because songs that have mass appeal that are written well do well. It doesn't matter who it's from.
Here, let me tell you something else though. And I know that I was young when this went on, but I still don't. And I listened to the radio. I still don't remember it ever being on the radio. I never sat back and went, "Oh, it's Kiss." I know I had the 45, but I don't think I ever flipped it over. I think I only listened to Detroit Rock City. I didn't care about Beth. Obviously, it's a huge important song in history.
Yeah, you have to. Well, you're looking for rock, so obviously you're going to gravitate towards rock. You're not going to gravitate towards ballads, and ballads weren't the in thing at the time, right? So you think it's by mistake? Because I think on Smashes, they're not trying to stick a knife in Peter. What they're trying to do is every ballad is going top 10, and they're trying to have another top 10 hit. So you have Eric go sing Beth to see if they can get it on the radio again. And it just doesn't work. But that's why they did it. Otherwise, there's no reason to re-release that thing.
That's a good point. So also something else, some other things that happened. Kiss
Comic books.
showed up in comic books.
Yeah.
Howard the Duck, was the first place they showed up, and it was so smart, one, of Marvel, and two, of Kiss to tie themselves to that, because, well, Gene wasn't going to say no, and he probably would have been in a fist fight with anybody that said no. You know what I mean? He's
Yeah.
such a huge comic book fan. Um,
But in the end, it helps their brand, but it really doesn't help sell their music.
no, it sells comic
Right?
books.
So just like today, when you see somebody wearing a Guns N' Roses shirt and it's like, name 2 Guns N' Roses songs, that can't do it. I'm sure there was people walking around with Howard the Duck comics in 1978, and somebody says, name 2 Kiss songs, and they couldn't do it. Right? Because now it's a brand thing, and it's cool because they have characters. So
Right.
it's really 2 different businesses happening at the same time, right? There's the music business and the brand business. And I think we can say they were the biggest band in the world in 76, 77, and possibly 78. But I could say they were one of the biggest brands in the world in 76, 77, 78.
Yeah, I mean, and as somebody so eloquently pointed out before, that they say that every time we say Kiss was the biggest band, they're always like, there were bigger bands, and
There
it's
was.
true. There was.
There's absolutely true.
There absolutely was. But I would venture to say that if you put Fleetwood Mac on the cover of a comic book,
You
it
ain't selling crap.
It ain't selling.
No.
So how would we describe them then? Not the biggest record selling band of all of the time, but
They were
the
popular.
most recognized faces,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. But that doesn't make you money. That makes you some money,
Right.
but it doesn't give you musical credibility. And we already know that it didn't. Right. And that's when you're that popular, you can fizz out fairly fast. Where if the music has staying power, like the Fleetwood Macs of the world, which I don't love Fleetwood Mac, but dude, the songs are still around.
Right.
Right. So obviously they got something.
Yeah, no, it makes it, and you also have to realize that the people that were listening to Fleetwood Mac were a completely different crowd than was listening to Kiss.
Well, that'd be true today. You could say the same
Yeah.
thing about Swifties.
Yeah, if I went to a Fleetwood Mac concert, you're correct. But if I went to a Fleetwood Mac concert, the chances are I'm the only person wearing a Kiss shirt in the whole place. Oddly enough, it wasn't like that when I went to see Barry Manilow. There were other people wearing Kiss shirts and they were waving at me, which was funny. but so I get it, and what type of person was listening to Fleetwood Mac at that point was my uncle and my mom and my cousin's mom, and those were the people, and those are, and then because they were listening to Fleetwood Mac, their kids were listening to Fleetwood Mac. So when Fleetwood Mac comes in concert, not only are the parents going in their 80s, because it's a concert that an 80-year-old could go to, but their kids are the ones taking them.
And I think we have to realize our generation is the only generation that cares about Kiss. Come on. My kids don't care, and my parents didn't care.
Right. My son, he enjoys the idea of it, but he
doesn't care.
He
and
had
your
a
parents
great
didn't
time.
care.
Right. No, he had a great time at the show. But if you had to tell him to choose between one and something of today, it would be something of today.
Yeah. But somehow Hendrix is spanning all 3 generations. Somehow Zeppelin is spanning all 3 generations. Somehow Superman is spanning all 3 generations, but Kiss isn't.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. And I know you guys are having a great conversation in the comment section. I'm sorry I can't keep up because I'm trying to show you guys all. Sonny, have I ever shown you this before?
Oh yeah, I have seen that before.
Okay, so for you guys out there, I know that a lot of you will know if you're watching. The trivia is this comic book, 40 pages of full color comments, comics plus never before published photos and features printed in real Kiss blood. The story is the blood got put in here. That's pretty interesting to me. I don't know if it's true or not. I just know that I found this at like a sports collector's show for like $2, and I was like, I'm gonna buy that just because.
Yeah. So AJ, you're right. If they had a Fleetwood Mac lunchbox, nobody was going to buy it. If Kohl's right now made Fleetwood Mac shirts, they wouldn't sell. Leftist Lola said, "I'm 23 and I'm a crazy Chris fan, so I disagree." I'm glad you're a Kiss fan. Your parents did you good. Your siblings did you good. That's great. It's just a matter of there's just not very many of you at that, in that generation. They're just not.
No, there isn't, and that's it. One of the things is that when you do meet a young person that loves Kiss, though, they really love Kiss.
That's right. Yeah.
It's like the psychotic love that I had growing up, where it was all the time. I love Kiss. I look online and you can see, if you click on a comment to see, because you're curious of how old the person is just because of their comment, and they're a young person, if you scroll through their thing, it's crazy Kiss fan. And that's really the only, you're not really getting a ton of tire kickers at the age of 23, 24, 25. Kiss comes to town, they're like, great, I have TikTok.
Yeah. And that's great. I have a friend who is a uber Elvis fan because her dad was. Nothing else about her life really yells Elvis, but she loves Elvis because her dad did. Right. So it's something that they shared. So if you learned it that way, then that's a totally different situation. Right. And I tried to brainwash the kids. Hell, I tried to brainwash 3 of them. They weren't going for it.
But you see, just by looking at these magazines, you see, I mean, there were full Kiss magazines. I don't know what year this came out, sue me, but full Kiss magazines.
It's interesting that they're not using the logos. Do you think they didn't have, like, that one has the logo, but the prior two didn't have the logo,
or they didn't want to pay for the permission?
But why would you get the band and not pay for the permission for the logo?
I don't know. I mean, that's a good question. It's a business question, Sonny.
So does that mean that they're paying the folks who took the photos to use the photos, but they didn't pay the band?
That's a possibility. 16 magazine, I did a whole 20-minute Kiss fix about 60. They were from about 76 on to even up to like, I think 82. They were in almost every 16 magazine in some way, shape, or form. Even if it was just one of the things on their subscription page, right? If you're flipping through and it's like a thing to cut out and mail in, it's them holding, the magazine in front of their eyes, in front of their face, so you just see their eyes. So, and just about every, I'm going to say just about every, because I don't have everyone, but it's one of those things where you're like, that's how big they were, though. They were, their faces were everywhere. Their music was not.
And 16's not stupid, right? This is that generation's band, and 16 is for that generation communication media, right? So it's like we have to shift to this is what's popular right now, right? Just like right now, I'm sure Taylor Swift is probably in every one of those thingies, right? The Weeknd is probably in every one of those thingies if they still release it. Like there's certain bands that over time, and I'm sure everybody's wearing a flannel shirt from 92 to 95 in 16 magazine, right? So they're
Good
just
point.
doing what's smart.
What's smart, right?
Yeah.
So let me ask, so they release Rock and Roll Over, just like you said. There's really nothing on there that makes you go, this is a radio hit. The next album comes out,
Love Gun.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same, right?
I love the songs, but there's just not really anything there that screams top 40 radio. It just doesn't, right? And that's okay. Yeah, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, and I love the album, and there's nothing wrong with that. But at some point, Casablanca had to see, okay, the brand is really bigger than the music, and we need to continue to pump the brand, and the music will be what it is, right? So I don't see how else they could do that.
Yeah, it's it's just one of those things. Here's the other thing though. I always thought that it was genius that Kiss changed their costume so much. Obviously, it didn't change. I don't think it changed between Destroyer and Rock and Roll Over. But by the time they got to Love Gun, it was a completely new costume. That was important too because it made people interested in seeing them. What do they look like this year? What do they change this year? What do they change this time? I'm in your I'm in your camp. I think that going back to whether or not they should have released records a little more spread out, But do you think that I think that that the reason why they did it, and it's probably to strike while the iron's hot. However, do you think that is the reason why they do it, or do you think that they were sitting back and going, "Well, we didn't get a hit off of this one. Let's just run to this one over here and put this one out before people get tired of us"?
I'm sure it's probably somewhere in between. The costume change thing is interesting. I think it's whoever had the argument of, look, you're going to have to keep changing the costumes because people are going to come see you live and they want to see different things. I can imagine Gene sitting in the corner going, Superman does not change his costume. Batman does not change his costume. Why are we changing ours?
You think that's possible?
Dude, the guy there's no horror character that changed. Dracula didn't change his costume. Right? So the stuff that he was really into, maybe it was, hey, the brand should be X and that's it. But somebody talked him into the makeup's that. You can change everything else. Don't worry about that. You have to stick with fashion or you have to make it different. Otherwise, people will get sick of you.
Later on, they changed the Superman comic. They took off his shorts.
Yeah, but what they did was they modernized him. That's what they did, right? Because the tidy whities or whatever wasn't going to fly in 2005, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: do you think that? Okay, so now let's talk about the marketing because the marketing went crazy, right? I mean, they were on everything, in everything. Do you think that a lot of people do? Okay, but I'm wondering if Sonny does. Do you think that is ultimately what killed them, or do you think that it was 79? We haven't got there yet, but 79 that killed them.
And I've said this before. Anything that comes too fast is dangerous for the folks that are that it's affecting, right? So in this situation, you have 4 people that are getting affected by something that is happening very, very fast. You've got an entity that has decided we're going to vote on everything, which is a terrible way to run a business. You cannot run a business that way. And I'm a supporter of the band should have one leader, period. One person says, F you, we're not doing that. One person says, yes, that sounds like a good idea. And we don't take any votes. Because when success comes, the problem is all 4 now have a voice. And there's people in their ears the entire time. So I think what happens is, okay, we're working hard. We want it. And here it comes. And it is coming nonstop. And now I can get anything I want. I can do anything I want. Everybody's at my beck and call. And that is absolutely dangerous for 4 people for it to happen that fast. This is why football players, baseball players, and basketball players crash and burn right out of the gate, because they don't have a good support structure. They get to the pros and they go from making nothing to making millions a year. And if you don't have a good support system, they let that
Gone.
get to them.
Yeah. And they spend it.
Right. They either spend it or they don't spend it wisely, or they're just being they're enjoying it too much, I guess is. I've always been a believer that, man, you get obviously somebody's in Mahomes' ear, right? Somebody's telling him, look, you got like 15 years and you can be Manning, and the rest of your life is taken care of. Or you can be one of these quarterbacks nobody's ever heard of before that got drafted in the first round and crashed and burned in 2 years, got to go do whatever they wanted, and now nobody knows where they are.
Right. So, one of the things that was really amazing, like let's take Madonna. She changed her look and her sound all the time. And if you take and you look at like the Harry Potter books, as you go through them, they grow older. The subject matter, pardon me, grows older with the reader. Kiss, it's almost like in this point right here, they were growing older with their okay, bad way to put it. They were making sure that they stuck to what their people liked.
That's
You
right.
follow me?
It's a two-headed monster, right? Do you want constant new fans, constant new customers, and then you'll figure out a way to keep your older customers? Or do you want to continue to grow with your customer, but then at some point there's an end in sight because, well, your customer is gone, and now what? Right? So, like, have you heard anything about Madonna in the last 10 years? I really haven't.
I know that she's doing a tour, and I really want to go.
Yeah, right? And so she's doing some sort of, I'm sure, legacy type tour or whatever.
That's what it is. That's it.
But she was growing with her audience all the way through probably the early 2000s, because she wasn't looking at, well, how am I going to be 45 years old and try to have teeny bopper fans? Like, that's not who I am. Right? So I think that's what ended up killing grunge too, because the angst that we felt as kids was gone as you become adults. They now you got to have therapists and stuff, right? But you're not going to have therapists at 13 years old. Like, the angst was gone.
Yeah. So it's interesting. It's interesting the way you put that, because if you look at grunge, it was popular really fast, really massively, and the kids loved it until they could walk into Sears and buy the grunge collection that was on the wall, because now it became something mommy could shop for.
That's right.
It wasn't something. All right, I'm following along. I might not be that smart, but I can use my brain sometimes. So, but Kiss was the same way. So Kiss has got this whole, this whole thing that, where it was kind of underground. They didn't want to be, but they were. And then when they finally came out from underground, the regular fans gave it a listen. It stayed popular until it didn't. Until they went to a concert and little Jimmy was sitting next to them at 8 years old, which would have been me, little Joey. Because now it's not dangerous anymore. My mom, these 16-year-olds that were listening to Kiss, and their moms were going, I really don't like that you listen to that. Please, let's go to Sunday Mass. And
and it takes guts to do what they did, because let's put this in context, right? Because the Eagles, I think, started in the early 70s too, right? Eagles started in the early 70s, right?
Right.
And by the time, let's say, 78 rolls around, now Kiss is around 4 years, and we'll just say the Eagles were around 4 or 5 years. Okay? The Eagles were already selling way more albums than Kiss was. We already know that. They were bigger than Kiss was. We already know that. There is no way anybody went into the Eagles camp and said, you are the biggest band on the planet. Don and everybody else, Glenn and everybody else, all do solo albums and release them on the same day. It takes guts. 4 years in? Dude, think about all the bands that you have listened to all your life, all the biggest bands on the planet. Nobody in 4 years could have the 4 members release a solo album. There's no way.
Right.
So it shouldn't surprise us that they didn't do well.
Right. Do you think that, let me ask you this though. Do you think that they would have done better? Okay, so now we're into 78. I mean, this is, that's
Yeah.
different. But my question is had Kiss, and I know that we weren't going to talk about 78, but we'll get into that more with the 78. But maybe let's just go into 78 because we could do 79 and 80 for another show. So 78, Kiss has got the solo albums out, right? Do you think Gene releases a record with 10 God of Thunders and it does better than it did?
Maybe. I think I'd like it better. I think the Kiss fan that grew up with them would most likely like it better. Right? But he's just trying to be himself. I can't fault the guy for that, right? But what else were you going to? The problem is you're stuck in a rock and a hard place. You got Peter thinks he can do something by himself. They're in Ace's ear saying he can do something by himself. And you can't really let them just go do something by themselves and not be involved because then they can't do it with the makeup. So how are they going to sell it unless they come out and say, I'm Ace Frehley, I'm not in the makeup anymore. So you can't allow that. So this is, I guess, the lesser of all the evils is let everybody do their thing, but we'll do it in the cocoon that is us. The problem is it's only 4 years in. Right? 3 years earlier, they couldn't sell a ticket.
Right.
They were about to go bankrupt. So it's very, very risky. But I guess if you got to appease everybody, then it kind of is what it is.
If they're trying to hang the whole band together, they're trying to keep it together. I mean, at this point for Casablanca, they're making money in other places with Donna Summer and other things.
Oh, yeah.
Parliament, they needed Kiss, but they had money coming in from a dozen places. There's some really good questions here. One person wanted to know why you think that Detroit Rock City isn't radio friendly.
It just doesn't have mass appeal. It's not, to me, it's not repeatable enough.
Top 40 is what you're talking about.
Yeah. Top 40. Like
the rock stations would play it.
Yeah, but nothing, the song Nothing But a Good Time. Right? You know how many people know that song? Do you think anybody that knows that song, that loves it, can name the 4 band members?
Right.
No way. Right? They just love the song. Right? I just found out. Remember that song, Spirit in the Sky? It's been in all these movies.
Right.
Spirit in the Sky, right? Some guy named Norman Greenbaum wrote that. I didn't know that. It's been in hundreds of movies and shows. And I didn't know that. It's just, you just know the song, right? So you're like, wow, that's what I'm talking about, mass appeal. And that's what Beth had. It was short. It was sweet. It was to the point. It was a little bit different than what was going on in the mid-70s. And it's like, all right, that's it.
Right. So, somebody mentioned, and it might have been Darth Shredder. I apologize if it wasn't, that in 78 is when really the marketing really took off. In 77 though is when it started, because somebody realized, basically in the interview that I watched with a couple of people that worked for A Coin, they basically said, we started noticing that people were putting their faces on things and selling them. So we were like, well, we need to do that. If people are putting their faces on a t-shirt or on a mug, we need to be the ones putting out the t-shirt and the mug. And it blew up. The cards alone, just the Kiss cards. If you go online, from 78, they're so popular. Even today, if you go, they're highly collectible. People love to have them. If you go online and look them up, they sell for a few bucks, a set, even a set of 66 cards or whatever it is still goes for $50, $80. That's crazy. I could get a whole set of Elvis cards for like $5.
And just as we're saying, Kiss missed out on album sales that the Zeppelins and the Fleetwood Macs had, right? Let's just stick with those two, and the Eagles, right? So Fleetwood Mac, the Eagles, Led Zeppelin, absolutely sold more albums than Kiss, and still have sold more albums than Kiss, and Kiss missed out. But you know what those three missed out on? I don't have a mug in here that's Fleetwood Mac. I don't have a mug in here that's Eagles. I don't have Led Zeppelin cards. I don't have Led Zeppelin mini guitars. They missed out on the branding, right? They could have had room. I'm assuming somebody has a Zeppelin room, but I'm assuming there's 100 Kiss rooms to every Zeppelin room out there.
That's a possibility,
right? So as much as Kiss kind of missed out on the album sales, those other bands missed out on just branding, period. I don't even know what the Fleetwood Mac logo looks like. At least I have an idea of what the Zeppelin logo looks like. Do the Eagles have a logo? I don't even know.
I think it just says Eagles.
I don't know. So that's how much they missed out on the branding.
Yeah, they really did. Hey, look, you're getting this is going to cover you.
Oh, yeah.
Pasquale, you're going to be on Kiss Army Nation podcast episode 121, fan profile with Sonny Pooney. So that comes out tonight?
Yeah, so I recorded that a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago, and I think it comes out tonight.
Oh, that's cool. I'm going to watch that while the Dallas Cowboys are playing against the Giants. I'll have a lot going on my brain.
That's why Joey's really not here, because his team's going to get killed tonight. That's why he's not here.
Oh, God, I don't know. Anyway, okay, so here we are. Okay, we jumped into 78, even though that's not in the title of the show. 76, 77, 78. Kiss's 3 best years. What do you think?
Oh, hands down, their 3 best years. Because
3 best years.
Part of 75, we don't even know if they're going to survive yet. So 76, 77 is their 2 best years. 78 is a great year just because the solo albums are coming out. And then I think it's, really 79 is where we start seeing the cracks, although cracks were there.
Yeah. And we also have to we've got a few minutes. It would be a mistake not to mention Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park.
Yeah, I'm not in love with the movie, but I don't have love for those kind of campy movies from that time frame anyway. And I'll tell you, even I loved Chips, I loved A-Team, I love it. But when I watch it now, I'm like, oh my God, that is so bad.
It is
right.
bad.
The A-Team was one of my favorite shows of all time.
Mine
I watched
too.
it the other day and I'm like, oh my God, the acting is so bad here. But I get it. It was when it was. Chips has actually survived a little bit. Chips is not as bad as some of the campy shows we used to watch.
Can you tell me the one thing they never did on Chips that on every other cop show they've done?
Shoot somebody?
They never pulled their guns.
Yeah.
Not one time. That was a trivia question, and I didn't know it, and I've remembered it for 15 years. I was like, they never pulled their guns? Never pulled their guns.
Because there was never any shootouts, remember?
Yeah. There was always chases.
Yeah.
Doug Ponier wants to know, was Elvis a Kiss fan? Because somebody mentioned Elvis was. I will tell you that a story was just released. I want to say it was Elvis's cousin, I think it was a cousin or something like that, that was listening to Alive. And Elvis came downstairs and he was like, this is Kiss. And they were listening to Let Me Go Rock and Roll. The guy was very specific. He said, I put on Let Me Go Rock and Roll. Elvis listened to it. He said, let's listen to that again. So obviously, I'm not saying I'm not sure if you're a fan, but he did definitely like the song.
It wouldn't surprise me because Elvis was very visual too, right? So he's not got his head in the sand. He's looking at what other visual media out there is doing well. I'm sure Elvis he knew who Alice Cooper was. There's
Oh,
no
yeah.
way he doesn't, because they're all in the same entertainment business and they're in a visual type business.
Joel Hoffman says getting in fights for being a Kiss fan is the biggest urban myth ever. I've never ever been made fun of for being a Kiss fan. That's ridiculous. Joel, I'm going to tell you, I never got in a fist fight, but I got in arguments, and I was made fun of for being a Kiss fan at least 3 or 4 times in my life. A couple times when I was a kid, and definitely as an adult, because it's silly when you're an adult to have all this crap.
I've honestly, Joel, for me, I've never had anybody say something weird to me about Kiss.
Right.
Now, I didn't get into them until the mid 80s, and I'm a big guy, so nobody's going to say stuff to me.
Yeah.
I have Kiss stuff all over the place. Now, my wife, does she look at me like I'm crazy? Yes. And she wants to know why there's an arrow on Peter's chest pointing to his junk? Yes. But besides
that's
that.
a good question, too. So funny. Here's the ad for Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park. You guys can see right there. If it's really funny because for some reason Ace has a beer can on the top of his head. I'm not sure why. Nobody knows why. And to me, I'll be honest, it's embarrassing. The other stuff that's advertised on the other side, the shows are I recognize 3 out of the 4. Welcome Back Cotter, Love Boat, Fantasy Island, and whatever Carter Country is. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
It's
either.
crazy to look through here because there's like 8 tracks. You could buy 8 tracks.
But like Love Boat and Welcome Back Cotter didn't age well. But Love Boat and Fantasy Island, they aged okay. I saw some old episodes not the other day, probably a few months ago, and I'm like, oh, that didn't age too bad. Like, I can understand why people were still into that.
Yeah. One thing is for sure, and most of you guys that are watching along, we grew up in this era of the world, and I feel so fortunate to have had everything from Kiss to the A-Team to Chips to Happy Days to
Hogan's Heroes. Love that
Heroes.
Show.
So many
Bewitched.
different. Yeah, I'm just saying, I feel so fortunate. I watch what my kid watches now, and there's no fun in that. I don't understand.
I watched SpongeBob SquarePants like 3 or 4 shows in a row once, and I'm like, I don't get it. I don't understand. The Justice League was so much better than this.
Yeah, I don't really get it. Anyway, all right, so we're done for the day. We got to go because there's a game starting in just a few minutes. Next week we'll have, I don't know what's happening next week. Sonny, did you say you're out next week?
I am on a cruise with my beautiful wife.
Oh, that's right. He's on a cruise. Yeah. We'll figure out what's happening. I will tell you there. We'll get into that next week. Anyway, thank you guys, man. I really do appreciate you being here. And we've already scheduled a show for 2 weeks from now. Sonny, tell them what it is.
So there's a show that's going to happen on October, I think is 7th. It's that Saturday. I believe that's the 7th. Oh, it is the 7th. It's called Kiss Night in Vegas, and it happens in Vegas. They try to do one every year. This is, I think, 8th or 9th probably installment. And what it is there's a group of musicians, some friends, that get together and do a Kiss show. And this year, they're doing the first album front to back. They usually do it at Vamped in Vegas, which is a club called Count Vamp. If you know who Danny Coker is, he's the Counting Cars guy, if you're a car fan. He owns the club, and he's usually involved. And all the proceeds from the show goes to schools in Vegas for music instruments, because, a lot of the schools don't have music programs anymore. So they do this every year. And a couple of the guys, or at least one of them, is going to join us in a couple of weeks and let us know, like, why do they do this? They're uber Kiss fans, dude. I'm not talking about Kiss nerds. Some of these guys, man, they're Joe-esque. They are in the Kiss nerd family. There's no doubt. But they are
some people. I feel like I'm way down. It's like
super talented musicians, and man, they do the songs justice, right? So this is not your bar band, cover band type thing. They care about what they're doing, and it's marketed well. I've been to one a couple of years ago, right before COVID. Actually, it was great. So I'm going to this year's. So we're going to have one of the guys or two of the guys possibly come join us.
That would be amazing. Anyway, go watch that show with Sonny on it. And tonight, when you're watching the football or whatever, watch Sonny talk about his history. And I guess that's pretty much it. Do you have anything to add? What did your other show do? What your main show? What did you guys do?
We just released a trivia episode because when we're on Monsters of Rock, a bunch of friends will get in a room and play trivia. So we just released that episode. So no, we're having a great time at Growing Up Rock, dude. With 6 years, 6+ years, never missed a week. Never missed a week.
Me neither. I mean, no, I'm kidding. You guys know what I'm going to say. We love Kiss and we love Kiss podcasts. Most of them anyway. And you're going to hear I love the one that Sonny's going to be on for sure. And you're going to hear the commercials for all the ones that we love right after this in 3, 2, 1. Peace.